Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, family. How you doing? This is Preacher Moss, host of the Shout Out Show, the SOS. Listen, I hope everybody's having a beautiful Wednesday. As you know, when you get to Wednesdays downhill, on the other side of the hump. Peace and blessings to people that tuned in yesterday. Not yesterday, but last week. I didn't get a chance to talk to you. There's some folks that were left in Instagram land. I don't want you to think I was not paying attention to your messages. I just didn't see it till after the show was over. So forgive your brother. Inshallah, you come back and we'll be able to do it again. Want to give another shout out to the Farrakhan family. Lost his mother Khadijah is a landmark at 90 some years old. She is history, and I think we should make appropriate duas for the Farrakhan family. That's one. I think the other thing is uh, for all you brothers out there, you know what? Take time. Just take time, maybe 15, 20 minutes, not 15, 20, 15, 20 seconds. And if your mom is still with you, just go give her a hug. And if she's not still with us, just stop and make a prayer for her soul and reflect on the greatness and the beauty of your mom if you get a chance. Okay. So today's topic is a little different. It is, what is the value of law in 2026? What is the value of law in 2026? Let me tell you guys where this is coming from. I'm an optimist. I am an eternal optimist. And I'm not just saying as a Muslim. I really believe that the good in the world will always outweigh the bad in the world. But it just seems that one, the good is so hard coming these days, and the bad just seems so prevalent. Trying to find a winning formula for how we exist or coexist in a world that is off kilter, a world that is not reflecting the best of us, a world and people who have no interest, they have no inclination in pursuing or generating the best versions of themselves. And I find that a lot of that has to do with law. Law is connected to permissibility, and permissibility is connected to our choices, decision making. Um, I alluded to it a little bit last time when I started talking about the cornucopia, if you will, of just bad decisions has led us to a space where that is the normal thing now. Normalcy is one, bad decisions, and normalcy is two, a lack of accountability. What that has to do with is we now find that behavior, intent have been separated from law. So the question today is, what is the value of law in 2026? I'm going to go back a little ways with some of you. As a school teacher, I watched the change and the ability to teach students and the ability to keep your job. And that change was that the world became extremely litigious, right? And it was for the protection of children. But at a certain point, it gave a leverage to children who knew that I could say X, Y, and Z. I could threaten a teacher's job as a child, not knowing the full ramifications or having a complete intellect or things like that, maturity, but they know that they can get the teacher in trouble. And I went through that with a young man who claimed that in the process of having to discipline him, he made the claim that I had taken him and slammed him into a couple walls. Well, I didn't slam him into a couple walls. What had happened was I refused to back down off the rules, hence the laws of classroom. And I did not allow him to be a part of the classroom because he was violent at the point in time. You know what happened, brothers and sisters? He was able at that point in time to bend the law to align his story close enough that the law was activated. And in that situation, that scenario, I now find myself in a legal morass because all of a sudden it's my word against him. And I'm going to tell you guys, the word of an adult against a child is always going to go to the child. It's just the way it is. We think children are innocent, and most of them are, but there are some children that are not innocent. There are some children who have agendas, just like the parents who are connected to them. So when I found out basically with this young man, and this is back in the 90s, that basically um, his story got to the point where there was a lawsuit that was going to be filed. Now, the lawsuit did not go through, and the reason that the lawsuit didn't go through because there were two other children and a custodian who saw everything that went down, and the situation fell apart. But I'm saying that if it weren't for those witnesses, I may have been in a rather large lawsuit. Why am I bringing that up? And this is important because I now find in 2026 that the law, one, lacks authority, two, does not acknowledge precedent, and three, is easily manipulated. We're going to talk about that here on the Shout Out Show. Don't you go. We got a heck of a show. We got a heck of a 24 minutes that are going to be coming up. Don't you move. We'll be right back. All right, we're back. We're going to get into our Shout Out Show family. Want to give some love. Uh, what's going on, Sister Reed? Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good to see you. We got Brother uh, Javid. How you doing, Brother Javid? Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Of course. JT, wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. What's going on, little brother? Good to see you in the house. My main man, Altaf Rashid, we call him, he's a Canadian envoy. Mr. Straight Up, 6 o'clock, straight up, straight down, a Canadian envoy to the show. Always a pleasure to see you. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bilal Salahuddin and his queen, Sister Sonia Dalton Salahuddin, in the house today. Good to see you, brother. I think I didn't see you last week, so I'm glad you're back, and I hope you're enjoying all that good vacation time spending with family and grandkids. And wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to, of course, our executive producer, Sister Satana Whitfield, without which so much of this stuff would not happen. And let me get out Instagram land. Okay. Taha, well, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Fitra Rashid. All right. Fitra. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And Hara. Wait a minute. Let me see. Hara 411 join. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you so much for joining us. Let me start by trying to explain to you who I am as a person. Outside of the comedy and things like that, I felt growing up that I was really connected to the world. I was connected to the future of the world, the present, but I was also connected to the past. One of my larger arguments, and one of the things that would, at times as a child, just brewed huge levels of depression, was how my people were treated, how my grandmother was treated, how my grandfather was treated, how their people were treated, how the whole demonic ecosystem of slavery was somehow manufactured. And as you begin to grow younger and have access to information, you move out of childlike thoughts and you say, what is the causality that allows these things to happen? And it just came back to the same thing, law. Now, let me be really, really clear. As an African American, I have very, very, very low confidence in the majority of the laws that are on the books regarding fairness, regarding race, regarding opportunities. The idea is that these laws, in and of themselves, have always, listen to me, have always compromised competition. They've made it difficult for you to be the best version of you because the best version of you is what they fear. That laws, going back to when I was 4 and 5, understanding, you know, it was a childlike thing. I said, well, why do human beings have laws and animals don't have laws? If a human being kills somebody, they got to go to prison. If a lion kills a gazelle, he just had a good meal. There was no trial, there was no indictment, right? But I said, what is the reckless and dangerous behavior of the human being? And in and of itself, never corrected. It's never corrected. Mentally, like a lot of you, I have to really hold firm to not check out on this world, to not check out on the fact that, good, forget, the good people finish last. They're not finishing at all. Good guys finish last. We're not finishing at all. We're not even in the race to be good. There's no competition for evil and bad. This is the new normal that we're supposed to accept. I constantly, I pray to Allah constantly that some of the things in my heart that I'm wrong, that I am wrong. Things like ceasefire with Palestine, things like the ceasefire with Iran. What did I say? I said a ceasefire is not cease war. And I want to be wrong so desperately, but I can't. These are the things that we deal with. The premise of life right now is that there are a group of people who have to follow faulty, funky laws, and a group of people who don't follow any laws at all. That the people who make up laws that restrict your religion, restrict your ability to vote, they restrict your ability to move to certain neighborhoods, your ability to have profanity on a rap record, that these people are not, hear me now, they're not invested in any good version of you other than the version they can control. So what is the value of a law? And this may get some people upset. I don't care. This is what the conservatives and MAGA and a whole lot of other people don't want to talk about when they talk about critical race theory. Critical race theory is what? A treatise on the fact that there are laws on the books that are inherently fair to minorities, people of color, and underserved populations. And rather than say that, rather than acknowledge that and deal with that, they would rather get rid of the book, get rid of the idea, criminalize the idea so that we don't have a reference. So our children, hear me, our children 5, 10, 15 years from now will never understand or have access to the idea of critical race theory. That there was at some point in time a deep-rooted, clear examination of law. When you go to the court system these days, and you've heard me say this before, it's not about justice. Texas has a 99.8% conviction rate. What does that say? Things get played out. They're not trying to go to trial because the fact of the matter is they're not trying to do the work, meaningful work, important work that's connected to justice. If I see one more guy that got out of jail because he was wrongly convicted and he did 38 years in prison, and he comes out and he goes, you know what, I'm not angry. Well, damn it, I'm angry. I'm angry because the law didn't work in your benefit. One of the scariest things I realized when I was a kid, a person told me, hey, that's against the law. And I saw a policeman do it. And he goes, it's okay. It's against the law, but I'm the law. So what is this thing? Legality, lawful understanding, lawful behavior, lawlessness. What is it if the premise is it fits over here, but it doesn't fit over there? It's meant to be implemented here, but not to be implemented here. Our president abuses the law. He abuses the judicial system. He just had to pay $5.8 million to a woman in a civil trial, to a woman that he raped, that he sexually assaulted. And the woman just got her money after 4 years because he exhausted every level of law not to give her the money. And the last trick didn't work because he wanted to get new attorneys who needed X amount of time to get up to stuff. I'm telling you, people. I remind me that going down the street, the law could kill me. In Houston, a Mexican national who's been here for 30 years, hear me now, 30 years. He's a construction worker. He worked with his hands. He's a contractor of sorts. Murdered by ICE. Murdered by ICE. And why will ICE get away with it? And I'm going to tell you this, and please don't be upset with me, but I'm going to tell you this, because the invention of ICE has not come under the purview of law. So it invites a certain level of maverick behavior because they know the laws haven't been put on the books to restrict the behavior or account for the type of behavior. It hasn't happened. ICE, I see it, it's a paramilitary group. I say paramilitary because it's under the faction and the purview of the president. They don't operate like the police. They don't operate like the army. They don't operate like anything. This whole idea of lawlessness, and none of them are going to jail. Committing crimes, none of them are going to jail. Sound familiar? Yeah. But it's just a tune-up. It's a tune-up for people like me and you. It's a tune-up for young black men walking down the street minding their own business. We saw it before with Trayvon Martin, that the law was abused. Stand your ground was abused. It's meant to create, hear me, it's meant to create plausible denial for criminal behavior. So what is the value of law in 2026? It could be, and I could be wrong. It could be it's meant to reset the order. Because the laws I see coming out, they're not particularly in the space of trying to correct poor behavior, correct illegal behavior, criminal behavior. Even now, the bigger crisis is that spiritual law is now in crisis because it can't align to human law. It can't align to federal law because federal law has not made a place for it to align with. I'm watching politicians on television who vote, who vote supposing our best interest. I'm watching politicians on TV talk about this is a Christian country. Not this is a country that was inspired by Christianity, but no, this is a Christian country. And then you get to the levels of what kind of Christianity. And what is the setup? A lawmaker is telling you that because they're trying to make it law. I'm not saying it'll become law, but they're trying to make it law. These are the dog whistles that tell me in 2026, the law don't matter. This is like the wild, wild west in many regards. This is the legal manifestation of manifest destiny, that we take what we want, that we take it because it's our best interest. Your interests don't have anything. This is the legitimacy of a Palestine because now people say, these folks, they're here, but they're not here. I see them, but they're invisible. Meaning that in that space of being invisible, they have no value. And in the bigger conversation, if this makes sense, in the bigger conversation, you can't have logical arguments with people who don't respect the law. You can't have logical arguments with people who create, I want to say, almost criminal law. Did you hear what I just said? People creating criminal law. And this is a law that allows them to go out and commit crime. It allows them to enrich themselves. It allows them to make sure that my opportunities come at the expense of your opportunities. That if it's $50 to be made and split evenly, I get $100 and you get none. That's the law of division. Think carefully. Think carefully. There was a time when things made sense. I reflect back to my grandfather one time. May Allah be pleased with him. Clifford Moss Sr. One day, I was uptown. I was hanging out with him, and I wanted to go to the movies. My grandmother encouraged me to go ask him for some money to go to the movies. Now I'm in the suburbs, so I'm going out with white kids. So there's a markup on going to the movie. So I asked my grandfather for some money. He said, "How much you want?" And I didn't ask him. He gave me $1, and then I looked at the dollar like I had never seen a dollar before. Like, what are you talking about? I gave him $1. He said, "Is it a problem?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "You gave me $1." I said, "But the other kids gave me $5." He said, "Give me the dollar back." Gave him the $1 back. And he didn't give me any money. I said, he said, "Is that a problem?" I said, "Yeah. You gave me $1, I gave it back. You didn't give me anything." He said, "Well, the other kid's getting $5." He says, "Never let it be said that I stop you from following your dreams." What does that mean? I mean, you ain't getting $5. Even my grandmother was like, "Fool, you up $1." You're like, "Hell, I can't get $1. You got $1, you blew it." Law frames etiquette. True law frames etiquette. It frames behavior. The example I just gave you was not something that I did. I did disrespect my grandfather, but looking from his lens, there was a time when he was a child, he never had $1. He never had $1. And it had more to do with the fact that they were sharecroppers. You hear what I'm saying? They were sharecroppers. When he was a kid, he was a sharecropper. He wasn't in school. He wasn't in school. He wasn't hanging out with his friends. He was out in the field with his family. And so he was looking at his grandson going, "You don't understand where I'm coming from." There was a law that said I had to work as a sharecropper and couldn't get education. There was a law as a sharecropper when I was a child, we couldn't go to movies with white people. Let me peep this game for you a little bit. There are so many laws on the books. So many laws on the books. So many details hidden in judgments and torts and things like that. So many laws that it's established that we cannot get ahead. It's established we cannot get ahead. I'm being honest. It's established we cannot get ahead. What I'm saying is, while it's established, it doesn't mean that we can't get ahead. It's established, but we supersede that limitation. We supersede that barrier. Whereby law cannot contain me. It can't contain my creativity, can't contain my drive. But when you go to the marketplace, you have to deal with parameters that you didn't set. You have to deal with artificial realities that had absolutely nothing to do with you. Hmm? The thought process from years ago. We just had our 250th anniversary, and they had fireworks, they had this, no mention of slavery, no mention of indigenous peoples. None. None. Why? Because it frames something. It frames a natural law. A natural law that permeated this country that allowed for Mother Nature to be real. It allowed for animals to roam freely. It allowed for religious, spiritual expression, you know. But the scope of Europeans coming to this country, and let's call it what it is the fact that they couldn't handle it. That competing natural law, it cannot compete with greedy law. It cannot compete with hate law. It cannot compete with disadvantageous law because the nature, and I'll say this and I'm going to move forward, the nature of law is governed. You always hear these things of a Sharia law, or in Sharia law, I don't want no Sharia. And they say all of these things. What is Sharia? Sharia is not a government. It's not a caliphate. Sharia is how we govern ourselves. Think about that, how we govern ourselves. Now you're creating a conflict because the law that's out there is all consuming, all assuming that it has the ability and the right to control people who control themselves. Think of the laws that are out there. Real estate law, international law, tax law, criminal law. Think of corporate law. Law that's out there to, for lack of a better word, shape and compromise every level of your life. And in 2026, laws don't mean a damn. Laws don't mean a damn. And why do I say that? Because you can reverse the law. Roe v. Wade, the Voting Rights Act, and you hear what I'm saying? Roe v. Wade, the Voting Rights Act, Obamacare. You can find the fine threads on these laws and pull them. Right? I'm so happy, and I've heard great things about the Barack Obama library. I've heard so many things. You know why? Because it speaks to the fact that this law around us, why it may give us a whole hell of a lot of trouble, it's a losing proposition. That library is dedicated to the fact that people, movements, spirits excelled above these inferior laws. So let me get to the wrap. We've got a minute left. I already said, when I was a kid, I would really get depressed about how laws controlled good people, good intention. I don't get depressed like I used to. A lot of it has to do with being a teacher, being able to affect young men and young women with good intent, with good purpose. That's one. The other two, of course, is comedy. That helps me look through the hypocrisy. But the last thing is this. Laws, bad laws, they haven't gotten to the point where they've been able to delegitimize hope. I'm thankful for that. They haven't been able to delegitimize hope, and I hope all of you hadn't delegitimized hope for you. And I say this from the bottom of my spirit, keep pushing, keep pushing. That's our show for today. Inshallah, we'll see you next week. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Preacher Moss, shout out show.